Is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Guys, we're going to talk about Anthony Richardson and his game coming back from his benching against the New York Jets. I am joined, of course, by Landon Oliver, member of the Blue Stable Group. How are you today, my friend?
Doing great, man. It was a lovely game. Really great from Anthony Richardson. Great performance, him and really a couple other guys as well. Putting the team on their back, leading the Colts late to come from behind and get the W. So you can't ever have a better day when you get a Colts win.
Yeah, no doubt. And especially when, you know, your potential franchise quarterback has the game that he has. And I mean, I want to start by saying, like, I think that you can agree with me on this, that the reason why guys like you and I that wanted to see Anthony Richardson come back over Joe Flacco and the whole reasoning behind it was because we didn't think that the Colts' problems would instantly go away if you put Anthony Richardson back there. We just thought that when you look at what Joe Flacco is giving you versus what Anthony Richardson was giving you, I mean, there's no way of looking around it. Before this game, the Indianapolis Colts offenses were practically identical when it came to numbers per game, points per game, yardage, all this other stuff. So it's like neither one of these guys was really making the difference over the one or the other. But we were just saying, if it's going to be like that, we wanted to at least see Anthony Richardson out there getting the reps, trying to get better, because if Joe Flacco doesn't instantly make this offense a million times better, then what's the point in not having the young quarterback out there gaining the experience of the reps? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. And like most importantly, I think the team would agree too, based on the move, because the whole reason you make the move to Flacco is, yeah, your ceiling is not as going to be as high as it is with a guy like Anthony Richardson with the talent that he has. But he was performing at like a very below subpar level. And you're hoping that with Joe Flacco, you would at least raise the floor to where you're getting more veteran presence, you're getting more efficiency in the passing game, that kind of stuff. And maybe with raising the floor, it would have led to more wins. Obviously, though, as we saw, that didn't happen. It was actually worse. The last two games with Joe Flacco was actually worse than almost any game Anthony Richardson played in this year. Even going back to like the Green Bay game, stuff like that, they were not good. So he kind of forced their hands to where I think they had a very similar process. Is like, well, look, if Joe Flacco's not going to make the difference, if this is going to be his performance, then why is Anthony Richardson on the bench? Like, why are we sitting him? And we need to make the move back to him because he needs the reps. And I agree completely. This was the move. I'm not going to say like the benching shouldn't have happened. Just knowing what we know as far as preparation and stuff like that, I think it was a very good wake-up call. But there were other ways around that, about like the situation and all that I personally probably would have handled a little bit differently. But clearly they're in the building. They know more than we do. I understand all that. Anthony Richardson is back, and I think this is what you envisioned when you drafted him, was this type of performance.
Yeah, and, you know, I would argue that, I mean, this was far from an even the best performance that Anthony Richardson could give you, which, I mean, shows you the ceiling of a kid like this when you can have a total of 300 yards, complete 67% of your passes, and have 3 touchdowns, and yet that doesn't even feel like he really had his best game. I mean, tells you a lot about what he did. And you know, so I mean, for this game specifically, did this feel like a coming out party for Anthony Richardson, or do you think that there still is just a lot more that Anthony Richardson needs to build upon?
I think it's a mix, right? So here's the thing, like, they can't allow this game to be like a microcosm, right? Like, it can't just be a one-time thing that happens. Now you've seen it in a game, right? You've seen how good he can be. And to your point, I agree. Like he could have been even better. Like they had 3 drops in this game.
Yep.
They could have put up more points. The offensive line was pretty detrimental almost all game.
Mhm.
Outside of a couple guys, I think Nelson had a good thing. I actually think Matt Gonzalez had a really good game pass blocking wise. But Bordellini had his worst game as a pro.
Yep.
Um,
Dalton Tucker did
yeah,
too.
Dalton Tucker was horrendous today. When I mean horrendous, I mean horrendous.
Bad.
Braden Smith, he didn't have really a great game. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't up to his standard as well. So it looked like they were playing 3 rookies on the offensive line. And you saw so many times where he was able to, get out of the pocket, make guys miss. Like that one throw to Downs was the third quarter, I think like 12 minutes or so, third down. And he's got a guy on his back, and he makes that throw to convert one of the most crucial third downs of the game. And you don't get that type of performance. You don't get that type of game from Joe Flacco. Like he can't give
No.
you those plays. So yeah, now it's up to the coaching staff to make sure this isn't just a one-time thing. That now that we've seen this live on an NFL field, same thing with the Rams game last year. We saw it on an NFL field. Now, how do we get this to be a consistent thing for him? Obviously, he's still very young, so you're going to have your ups and downs. The roller coaster is not over by any means, but now we just need to focus on getting this consistent performance like we had this week. And I think there's a lot of things that point to that actually happening, which we'll get into. But yeah, it's going to be a ride, but if you're going to have games like this, it's going to be an enjoyable one for sure.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, we're 1 game back from Anthony Richardson playing again, and it already is way more entertaining than anything a Joe Flacco led offense will give you. So that definitely is the enjoyable part. I mean, for this performance, like how much of it do you give credit towards like people outside of Richardson? Like as far as like the players and like the coaching staff for like, I think personally, I think that this was the best performance from Shane Steichen yet this year, as far as like getting creative and creating a game plan that kind of fit Anthony Richardson a lot more. Now, a lot of the plays that they drew up, I don't necessarily think worked very well in execution, but I felt that it kept the Jets a little bit more on their heels. I mean, how much credit do you give to Shane Steichen for Anthony Richardson's best performance yet this year?
I give him a ton of credit, because this is the exact game plan that like myself and a bunch of other people, people a lot smarter than me for sure, have been like clamoring for. Is like you have this dual threat quarterback who has this rocket arm, who really, if you've broken down the film and you've watched the film of the past games, he's getting to the right reads. It's just he's just a tick slow. So like, how do we simplify things, right? Like, how do we accentuate what he does well? And I think the first play of the game was a quarterback run, and I immediately was like, okay, they might have it figured out for this game, and they didn't go away from that. They fully bought in to the reason they drafted him. This was the type of game plan why you drafted Anthony Richardson, is because of what he gives you on the ground, what he gives you as far as sack avoidance, what he gives you on the move, throwing on the run. And they mixed that in very well. And I think also, too, it did a really decent job of protecting the offensive line in pass protection in a way as far as like you're moving the launch point, right? You're getting him on rollouts. You're getting him out of the pocket. You're not allowing him to stay static in the pocket and turn into a drop back passer, which is really what they've been doing the entire year, is trying to turn him in to this pocket quarterback, drop back passer, 5-7 step drops, and throwing these long bombs, which aren't great for efficiency numbers. I mean, they're just not. And I thought you saw a lot more underneath stuff. You saw a lot more screens, a lot more dump offs, a lot more quarterback run game, a lot more RPOs in this game, which is really good. This was a very similar game to how they were calling games for him early last season. We saw the Houston game before he got knocked out. We saw the Los Angeles game. we saw early on in the Titans game before he got knocked out of those games. Um, this was very similar to those, and I think that's why people were so high on him coming back this year is because of kind of what he showed you in limited snaps last year. Well, they really got away from all of that stuff this year for whatever reason, and they went back to it today, and it worked. And I put this out there earlier on Twitter. I said, or I don't know if I posted it, but it was in a group. I might have posted it. I don't know. I've posted a lot today, but getting your quarterback those early, easy completions, allowing him to get into a rhythm early. While that might not look like much, little dump off passes, it's almost like whenever you're a shooter in basketball, right? And then things aren't going your way. Sometimes it helps to get to the free throw line and see the ball go through the net.
Yeah.
And then that kickstarts things. And it's the kind of the same way playing quarterback. You make 2 or 3 easy completions, and all of a sudden that confidence level goes up, and you're saying,
Yep.
hey, I'm able, to make completions in this league. I can make the plays. I'm in a rhythm. And then I thought that paid off, while it didn't lead to a ton of points early on, I thought it paid dividends in that fourth quarter in those last drives whenever he was dropping back and throwing the ball. He was in a rhythm early on, and that's a big credit to the coaching staff giving him those opportunities early.
Absolutely. And, I credit Steichen for remember, he had 12 passes in the first half, which, remember in the Houston game, the last one he played, I think he had 12 passes in the first 2 drives against Houston. You're right. In most of the year, Anthony Richardson was being told to have to throw the ball 20 times in the first half when you had every opportunity to just run the football. But yet they weren't. They weren't running it as much as they had. Now, in this game specifically, the Colts didn't do a great job at running the football because obviously your offensive line is completely banged up and you're facing a very good Jets defense. But I love the fact that Steichen committed to it, though. Like, you have to. You cannot force Anthony Richardson to have to throw the football 40, 50 times a game. That is not going to win you football games. He's just not that kind of quarterback. So you're right. You gave him, he didn't have to be the hero. Even early in the game, he was doing these designed quarterback runs. You had Jonathan Taylor working okay early in the game. So the drives were moving because of that. So Richardson didn't have to throw the football down the field all the time and doing all this. And, that touchdown that he threw to Josh Downs in that fourth quarter, I thought the creativity level of that was beautiful. You put Josh Downs in the backfield with Jonathan Taylor. You get him lined up one-on-one. I don't care who that is. That can be Jair Alexander. I don't care. You get Josh Downs in the middle of the field and say, either dedicate yourself to one way or the other. Josh Downs is winning that rep more times than he's not. And it was a great play and execution by Shane Steichen and the offense to get him in the open like that. And, that's something we haven't seen a lot of for the Indianapolis Colts this year. Their creativity inside the red zone has not been good this year, but this time around, they were able to figure that out.
Well, it's not even just the red zone either. It's really been the whole field. Like, there was at one point this year, it might have even been, all the way up until he was benched. His average depth of target was 15.1 yards per target.
Yeah,
like,
it's insane.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That is crazy. And that leads to a lot of very low completion passes. You're not going to complete a lot of passes that are 15, 20 yards down the field in the NFL. It's just not set up that way. Today, that average depth of target dropped down to 9.1. So you got basically almost a full, really a full 6-7 yards less than what he was throwing the ball. And imagine that. His completion percentage looked a whole lot better because they gave him more manageable throws. So, I think the coaching staff did a great job. This is the type of offense I want to see moving forward. And then especially getting Tanner Bortolini is playing, but getting Bernard Ryman back hopefully next week. Next week, tough game, right? So this is the type of offense that I really want to see this team run move forward.
Mm-hmm. And the offense can be better too when you get your offensive lineman back. You know, when you get Ryan Kelly back, if you decide to put him back in there instead of Bortolini. Either way, I mean, Bortolini's going to have his issues here and there. He was a 4th-round center. Give him the benefit of the doubt.
He's a rookie.
He's facing one of the better defensive tackles in the NFL. God forbid, right?
Yeah, and that's something that we shouldn't take away either. Like, I know, like, a lot of people, we're going to harp on the offensive line's performance, and like, some of it's deserved. But we have to remember, this Jets defensive line, like, is no joke. Like, this is regardless, if you throw their record out, this team still has some extremely, extremely talented players, like Quinnen Williams. That guy blew up multiple plays today. His brother,
Williams' brother, I have no idea.
His brother's out there playing good. Will McDonald has been unbelievable this year. Hassan Reddick, who I know
they have a top 10 defense. I mean, they do. They have a top 10 defense.
3 in pressures and sacks. They're top 3 in the NFL. So yeah, this is not a joke of a defensive line. This was a very tough matchup for this Colts defense or offensive line, who's like extremely shorthanded right now. So yeah, it didn't work out in the run game the way we had hoped, but like those guys made plays. But at the end of the day, that's what I said earlier is, the reason why the Colts won this game is because they had Anthony Richardson and the other team didn't.
Yep, absolutely. So as far as like Anthony Richardson's performance, what really stood out to you today? Because, I mean, there's a lot of it. I mean, this was by far and away the best game that Anthony Richardson has had yet in his professional career, even from not just from an efficiency standpoint, but numbers wise, set career highs and a lot of different things today. And again, like we said before, this just because the Jets are 3-8, that's indicative of their offense. That has nothing to do with their defense. Like we said, they're a top 10 defense, regardless of how you feel about it. That's a really good defense on that Jets team. So what stood out to you from Anthony Richardson today that looked different than what he has looked throughout the entirety of his career so far?
Well, I think a lot of people, they're going to point, towards the completion percentage and the passing numbers and all that. To me, it's actually, it's more of like an internal thing. It's more mental, right? The thing that really stood out to me was after the sack and the fumble. That led the Jets down. They scored a touchdown. They took the lead. A lot of young quarterbacks, especially 22, like we have to remember, outside of Drake May playing in New England right now, he is still the youngest quarterback in football.
Yep.
A lot of young guys, whenever they make a crucial mistake like that, they put the ball on the ground, the other team scores and takes the lead. Guys can get really down on themselves, and they try to press way too much. They try to make plays. They get out of their comfort level, right? It was the exact opposite with him. He was stone cold the whole game. I mean, he looks like he was built for this. And we've seen this multiple times now, to me. It's where this is not just a one-time thing. This is actually who he is. We saw it in the Rams game. We've seen it in other games where he's, I don't think he's ever lost a game by more than one score. If so, it's never been by more than 10. He's always kept his teams in game, even if he's not coming out with the win. They're still in the game. But this game was different from the aspect of just mentality, just how calm he was in the moment. Like, he didn't blink. Whenever he goes down and scores the touchdown, the Jets march right back down, score another touchdown, and then he goes right back down the field once again, scores another touchdown. I mean, it was just like boom, boom, boom.
I mean, if you don't know that he's clutch by now, you haven't watched him enough. He's clutch.
Yeah, like the dude was just so in command of his emotions. He was so cool, so collected. And the moment wasn't too big for him. And whenever you have a kid that's that young, that is still growing, whenever you see that kind of stuff from him, it really gets you excited because you're sitting there and you're thinking, man, if we can just rein in just a few more of the little things, basically like kind of what they did today. If they can rein in some of the little things, then he looks like a bona fide franchise quarterback out there. This guy looks like a guy that if everything goes correctly and everything works out, he can go toe to toe with the Josh Allens, the Patrick Mahomes, the Lamar Jacksons. Like, no, let's not. I mean, really, outside of a couple players, notably like Josh Downs, really like Quentin Nelson and Josh Downs. Like, I thought they had like really strong days. Outside of that, on the offense, nobody really played their best. And Anthony Richardson put the team on his back and went out there and made plays for guys and got this team in a position to win. And to do that at his level of experience, at his youth, it just speaks volumes to just how mentally strong he was coming in this game and how prepared he was.
Well, guys, with football season finally getting back into the swing of things, first off, we rejoice, but also, guys, when it comes to Prize Picks, this is going to be a great way for you guys, especially, to check out some of the stuff that Prize Picks has. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You heard me right. Only 4 correct picks. You can win 100 times your money, guys, on Prize Picks. Be sure to sign up today and get $50 off instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So if you're looking specifically for the Colts stuff, that's definitely something you guys should check out. But if you're looking for, like me, more NFL stuff, there's all sorts of stats and stuff that you can check out and make your picks. And there's definitely guys that are very consistent, like Jonathan Taylor against the Houston Texans, that you really feel like you can probably feel pretty good about overall, right? And there's some other ones where you're like, I don't know if I would take the over on that. I don't know if I would pick them to hit that margin, right? So, guys, be sure to go check out all that stuff on Prize Picks. It's only a couple examples. There's all the different odds that you could hope for when it comes to that for Prize Picks. So I highly encourage you guys to go check that out, but definitely excited for this season. And hopefully you guys will be following along with us and everything with Prize Picks and what they do. So be sure to download the app today. Use the code JUICE to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code JUICE to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Like I said, guys, it's a great way to continue to stay in with week-to-week life of the NFL, specifically with your favorite team, the Indianapolis Colts. So be sure to do that. Be sure to check out Prize Picks. And remember, Prize Picks, run your game.
You got to wonder how much of that, with the 2 weeks off on the bench, you got to wonder how much of it. I mean, Josh Downs said it, and even Richardson said it. Like, I've always took my preparation seriously, but this, just doing a little bit extra, you got to wonder how much of it actually did play a factor. Because, I mean, honestly, for me, what stood out was just how calm and collected he was in the pocket. Like, honestly, you couldn't run the ball in the second half. Like, the Colts couldn't move the ball with running it. Like, that was not a thing. Jonathan Taylor, I might have had negative yardage in the second half. That's how bad it was for the Colts running the football. So
they were getting no push.
You had to throw the football. You had to in order to have a chance to even win that game. And like you said, with the being down 8 with 10 minutes, and you had to score twice, 2 touchdowns twice to do that. And Anthony Richardson, I don't know what it was, but it's like, even from within the pocket, Anthony Richardson just looked like he was in command the whole time. Like, no throw was like, oh man, like just such a terrible throw, right? Like, I mean, outside of maybe a few throws that he would have liked to have had back, I mean, he legitimately could have completed 80% of his passes today if it wasn't for some situational football that happened. But like, it just seemed so crazy to me how confident he actually was as a pocket passer today. You know, we've never seen Anthony Richardson look and dial up things like that before. And I think that is what, you know, impressed me the most was even amidst all of it, you know, to come out and look like a quarterback, like someone that could do it from everywhere. And of course, you know, you mentioned earlier that throw where, you know, he threw it to Josh Downs where he was getting dragged down at the same time and had to throw it at the last second and still somehow connected it to Josh Downs. I mean, he made plays today that, again, reminds you there's only a few quarterbacks in the NFL that are capable of making those plays. And he showed you just with, if you give him the development, you just give him the time, like, this is the kind of performance you can get from him every week, and it will only get better.
Yeah, and I think, too, like, with him running the football in the red zone, like, he truck sticked 2 defenders on both of his touchdowns. Like, multiple.
Trucked them, dude.
I mean, and I'm not, that's what I mean. Like, it was like he laid some frustration out on those poor defensive backs today.
I can't say I love throwing the throwing shoulder into Jalen Mills. I can't say I love that, but I mean, that probably had to feel
a time
good.
And place, right? There's a time and place. And like, that's kind of what they've been trying to teach him is like where he's kind of gotten injured and stuff like that's happened is whenever he's doing that on like his own 40-yard line, right?
Or like when he's getting tackled when he's not ready for it. Right. Like, but when he knows it's coming and he's ready for it, like his body can take it. If he knows
I think the Houston game last year really, like the one he got knocked out of, like where he kind of slowed up at the goal line and then just got popped and got a concussion, it knocked him out of the game. I think that was a big learning lesson as far as like, you know, it's a lot easier to take the punishment whenever you're the one delivering it. And he delivered 100%. Some hell of a punishment today on those defensive backs. But even then, I mean, that's what I'm saying is like this could have been an even bigger day through the air for him because like if Drew Ogletree doesn't trip on that screen, that's probably going into the end zone. If Adonai Mitchell, you know, doesn't get tackled down at the 1-yard line, that's probably a touchdown pass.
And you know the Colts could have scored 3 points at the end of the second quarter had Michael Pittman caught that pass that Richardson put right.
That was a tough. You know? Like I know I got a lot of flack on Twitter for saying that was a tough ball. Like the slow-mo angle doesn't give a great picture. Like
I know I know he threw that on a rope like clearly, but I mean Pittman was not ready for that. Pittman was not ready for that ball to be thrown there. And
there's not a high enough setting on the jugs machine that can mimic that. Like that.
Yeah, you have to throw. You have to hit those on the jugs machine in order to be prepared for how hard that is. But I mean, even so, you gotta catch.
You gotta catch it. Yeah,
you gotta catch it. That was perfect.
But that was not an easy catch. That was a crazy.
Remember when Richardson got drafted? He said, "I don't care how hard I throw it; they better catch it." Like that, that is. I mean, I don't think anyone throws a football harder than Anthony Richardson.
No, I mean that's crazy. But you had three drops right today, and then you had the throwaway at the end of the half. Basically, they just ran the clock out. He punted the ball. If you take away the 3 drops, and you take the throwaway away, he completed 88.5% of his passes. 88.5% was his adjusted completion percentage for the day. So, this was very easily. I thought his feet looked so much calmer, like his base looked so much better. Everything just looked so much more in control. And I think getting him into that rhythm early on in the game, the first play of the game, quarterback run, like just letting him go do his thing, letting him get hit, experience football. Like, okay, now a lot of times with quarterbacks, even Andrew Luck said it, a lot of times whenever you get the first hit out of the way, it kind of reminds you like, okay, I'm here playing football, and it calms you down, which is kind of weird, but it just gets your mind right. So I think getting those out of the way early, getting him some easy completions, it rose his confidence level, and it paid dividends late.
Yeah, absolutely. And so last thing we could talk about with this, I mean, for a game like this, you have your best game, as a pro yet. And you win the game. I mean, albeit it wasn't pretty, but you knew that you put the team on your back. You won the game, in dramatic fashion. You came back from a comeback win. And, now the whole narrative is going to be like, oh, Anthony Richardson has finally revealed himself. Like, this is the coming out game for Anthony Richardson. Like, how much confidence do you think that this game instilled in Anthony Richardson? Because obviously for the Colts standpoint, to win this game, to even have a chance at salvaging this season, they need to win the games that they can. But for Anthony Richardson, of all people, the microscope was on you now. I mean, obviously you coming back, and now everyone was going to be like, oh, I got to watch every detail of this guy. I got to know, how's his footwork? How is he preparing? How does he look? And, you put that out there. Now the narrative's about to spin. But, like, how much confidence do you think that performance puts in Anthony Richardson going forward that he can do this?
It's immense. Like, it can't be understated the type of scrutiny this guy has dealt with over the last 2 to 3 weeks, basically ever since, the tap out thing occurred, right? I mean, and it's not just from Colts fans. It's not just from, people paying attention to the team. This was national news. Like, this, all the talk shows, Get Up, ESPN, Pat McAfee, NFL Insiders, all those shows, Good Morning, Football. All these shows were basically burying this kid for the last couple weeks. And a lot of people were calling for Joe Flacco, all that. I mean, like, I know that's got to hurt. Like, it's got to suck. And you saw the emotion on his face whenever, after he was benched and, the press conferences and stuff. Like, he looked down. Like, and then to come out today, and I don't know if anybody hasn't seen it yet, but there's a great video of him walking into the locker room from the team, from the tunnel, right? And Sam Ellinger's there, and he, gives Anthony Richardson a hug. And if you look on Anthony Richardson's face, you can just tell how much this game and this performance meant to him personally. If you go from being buried basically for the last 3 weeks, and then you come out, you finally get another shot again after so many people have written you off and said so many things about you, and you come out and you have this type of performance, it's got to do wonders for his confidence level. It's got to do wonders for really everybody involved in the situation to feel so much better about where you're at moving forward. And now you've seen it on the field. Now it's about getting it consistently, but it's not, you don't have the question mark of, can this guy be effective at the NFL level as a quarterback? Because you've seen it. You've seen how good he can be. And that answers a huge question for this franchise.
Yep, 100%. Well, shout out to Landon for coming on here and talking about Anthony Richardson with me. I mean, you and I go a long way back talking about this kid, and I don't know how you felt going into this game with Anthony Richardson, because I was so nervous. I was so nervous because for me, I have a lot of confidence in Anthony Richardson. I really want him to succeed too. And so to know that, a lot of people were going to be talking about this game and how he was going to look, and then to see him not only, win the game, but play very well in the game too, just makes me super happy as a fan that has a lot of hope for him. I don't know about you, but that was me today. I was so nervous.
Yeah. Which really, from my point of view, it wasn't even knowing, covering and knowing Anthony and all that kind of stuff. And I believe, like you said, even whenever we were doing the draft breakdowns, on your guys' channel, I came on and was doing the quarterback breakdowns with you, and we covered Anthony Richardson, back then. You can go look up the videos. It's probably almost 2 years old now. But I was never worried about Anthony. It was more about, is this team going to put him in a position to succeed, and can they play to his strength? I think this was the first week since last season that Shane Steichen molded an offense around Anthony instead of trying to mold Anthony around his offense.
Yeah.
And I think that played such a big role today. And I hope that they've now figured something out moving forward to where, this now becomes a very more, I guess, more common occurrence, moving forward.
Yep,
Yeah,
certainly hope so.
So excited.
Absolutely.
So,
well, that's it, guys, covering this one. That is us talking about Anthony Richardson's performance, what it means for him, and whether or not we could see more of it going forward. Shout out to Landon, obviously, for being on here. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. Let us know your thoughts. And as always, guys, go Colts.